let's move on to another component of Christianity that sort of has been totally co-opted and used to subvert not only the faith itself, but also a bunch of other things that are necessary for civilization and progress, actual progress, which is pathological altruism. So Nietzsche is a big fan of hitting Christianity on this point. And you talk a little bit about the ascetic priest, which is, of course, a very Nietzschean figure that those who've read, Beyond Good and Evil or the Genealogy of Morality would be familiar with. And part of the functionalist approach of religion is integrating this Nietzschean criticism and coming to the realization or the acknowledgement that the ethic of self-sacrifice is actually a weapon. How is self-sacrifice weaponized against others and oneself?
I think it's useful to start with how it's weaponized against yourself, perhaps. I think, at least, again, in my personal experience of Christianity, it very much was something that I think limited me and even triggered me in some senses when I found it to be agreeable. It's this idea that you take I love this term. Nietzsche uses it, well, at least it's a translation of the term Nietzsche uses, a voluptuous pleasure. And Nietzsche says you take a voluptuous pleasure in this kind of self-deprivation. I think, to put it in more modern terms, it's to say that you quite deliberately reject greatness. You set aside ambitions. You don't strive to be the best or the greatest. You instead make sort of a big show of handicapping yourself and limiting yourself, and you take more enjoyment in that. Specifically, you feel self-righteous about it. You take guilt, which you might feel for your successes or for being great. You take the guilt that you feel and you twist it up and you make it righteous, and you say, in your own mind, you say that I'm good for feeling guilty, and then you hamstring yourself and you call that goodness. But that's not good. In the Nietzschean conception, in fact, that is evil. For Nietzsche, it's very straightforward that wealth is good, power is good, strength is good, good things are good. It shouldn't even have to be said. I shouldn't have to sit here and tell you that it's good to be strong. That should be so abundantly clear that it's beyond question. That this is where one of Nietzsche's main points of criticism of Christianity is that they actually say, no, it is bad to be strong.
Right.
Right. And that's the idea of slave morality. It's, the sheep thinks, oh, the wolf is so evil with his teeth and his claws. But the wolf isn't evil at all. To be strong, to have claws, to have teeth is great. And in fact, you cannot be good if you don't have strength.
Right.
If you don't have the power to do evil, you cannot possibly be good. You're just sort of flat. You're just sort of mediocre.
Yeah. So this is one of
that's. Yeah.
I was just going to say that this is one of Nietzsche's main themes, is the reintroduction of what is called pagan morality into, I guess, the discourse, which, as you said, has as one of its core themes that what increases one's power is good. There is an equivalence between the increase in one's power and the good itself, and that these are not contradictory, they are not opposites. And so you should be stronger, you should be more magnificent, you should be wealthier, you should be more powerful. And in fact, as you said, goodness from a position of weakness is indifferentiable from cowardice. So you can't tell them apart.
Yes, exactly. And so not only does that become a weapon against yourself, but it also becomes a weapon against others, because now when someone else aspires to greatness, when they try to do something good, when they try to do something powerful, you instead, now you can take power from them by condemning them in these slave moralistic terms, by saying, oh, that person, that strong person, he is selfish, he aggrandizes himself, at the expense of the poor, at the expense of the sick, at the expense of the weak, and so on. And this is really, I think, I think everyone gets this. I think everyone on the far right, whether they're Christian or pagan or what have you, pretty much understands this now, that you can very, very easily burn an infinite number of resources trying to uplift the poor, and you will fail. There will always be poor people. There will always be people and sick people. It's not solvable. It's not, all you do is stop everyone from aspiring. You never actually uplift the numbers.
You know, I was having a discussion with some friends last night over dinner about these series of essays and about, you know, what we might discuss today. And the question came up, how do you like, the question came up is like, well, does not every religion or every pseudo-religious ideology have some concept of victimhood? And what is the difference between, let's say, nemesis and self-victimization, right? And one of the thoughts that I sort of came up with was that you know that you're not falling into a victim ideology if it's not trying to use this, if it's not trying to weaponize this component of self-sacrifice or this component of weakness, right? Because the victim-based thought patterns will always attempt to use their own weakness as a cudgel to beat down the strong. And you can still have a nemesis. You can still have an opponent out there that you're trying to defeat. But if you're trying to defeat them by becoming stronger than they are in a genuine sense, then you're not a victim. It's only victimization if you are trying to defeat them by throwing it in their face that they don't deserve to be stronger than you.
It's the idea that victims deserve more, the idea that the weak deserve more, that I think becomes so corrosive in these cases. So you obviously see this in whenever you talk about wokeness or affirmative action, diversity, all this, right? The core claim is that whoever is the worst, whoever is the most pathetic, they are the one who should receive the most help, the most benefits, the most attention, and everything like this. And so it then becomes this competition to see who can be the most pathetic. And I see a lot of white people doing this too, right, nowadays, arguing about how all the groups that have victimized them and all of the ways that they've been oppressed and so on. And that's just such, you're never going to win by playing that game. The whole point of that game is to lose. And everyone
we can all lose together, and then we can sit in the pit of our own.
Yes, we can all lose together. That's right. And that's not what we want. So it's good to have it. It's actually very good to have a nemesis. I'm not going to spill all this ink telling you that in order to have a complete religious experience, you need to have gnosis and nemesis, and then try to turn around and free you from the cycle of gnosis and nemesis. That would be non secular. If I did that, if I tried to construct some kind of anti-belief system that didn't have these components, then I would have created something very weak, because then someone else would come along and offer you a gnosis or offer you a nemesis, and you'd rather go with that instead. It'd be much more compelling. So, yeah, I'm not trying to erase any of these components from experience or to create an ideology which sometimes doesn't have them. Rather, I'm trying to produce, again, I cannot create some perfect synthesis that's just like, all right, I'm going to tell you the 6 things, and now you're going to believe them, and you're going to live happily ever after. Because life isn't static and the world isn't static, it's dynamic. So instead, what I try to do is produce a platform which can hopefully yield a compelling set, a compelling functionalist form of a religion that can be useful and empowering and not weakening.